And we're on with Brandon Walker from the Mostly Sports Show with Mark Titus. Brandon, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, and listen, I am on the Mostly Sports Show with Mark Titus. We do a great job. It's fun. We do it every day at 9 Central, 10 Eastern. But I also have a college football podcast, too, called Unnecessary Roughness. That's just a dominant force in the industry.
I love the way that you talk about it, because if you go on your Twitter, you say I'm the #1 college football personality in there. How did you come up with that, or is that like I'm gonna talk it into existence?
Well, first of all, I call myself the #1 college football media personality in the country because I am the #1 college football media personality in the country. That's what I am. Big Game Boomer, who is a guy in Oklahoma that just tweets out things. He tweets out lists. He looked at me and he said, "This guy is the #1 college football media personality in existence." And I'll be dang, he was right. And I don't know, my outward appearance, I have a love of college football. I have a love of college football that goes back till I was born. My whole life, I've loved college football. I love SEC football. And I was a sports writer for about 15 years, making no money, and nobody heard what I had to say. And then when I turned 40, I started doing a podcast and started being loud with my opinions. And 5 years later, it's things are really, really good.
See, I saw that Big Game Boomer list, and I looked at that list, and I was like, hold the hell on.
Whoa.
I'm going to the top of this list, Brandon. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but you're going to have to move down to #2.
That's fine. Well, come on. Hey, let me tell you something, George. You and I met one time, right? We met in Las Vegas, correct?
Yes, correct.
Come take it then. Come take it. If you want #1, walk over here and take it, George.
All right. Hey, listen, send me the address. I'm showing up. Your Twitter handle is actually a cool one. Mine is my name at George Wrighster. Yours is at BFW. What does the F stand for?
All right. Well, I guess politically I'll say football, but can I? We all family here. Can I talk?
Yeah, you can talk.
It stands for Brandon fucking Walker. That's what I came up with. My character's name is Brandon fucking Walker, and when I'm talking football, that's the kind of. It's kind of a wrestling personality. It was just taken. Listen, I don't know how old you are. I'm 44.
I'm 42.
I'm 44, so we're about the same age. So, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, it was all about The Rock. It was all about Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was all about these crazy characters, talking in third person and being loud and boisterous. And when I worked at Radio Shack in college, I was making $8 an hour, and I put on my name tag, BFW, Brandon fucking Walker. And I got the job at Barstool. I brought the character back and started doing it, and that's where it comes from.
See, I'm a big wrestling fan because I was born in Memphis, and so I grew up watching Jerry the King Lawler. On
Channel 5.
Yep. Every Saturday, man. Like, that was my experience growing up, and then moving out to Cali, which was a whole nother experience. But take me back to April 2019. You were doing the My Bookie show, and then what happened then with Dave Portnoy? Because I've seen different versions of what actually happened.
I'm gonna tell you the real deal. So it was April of 2019. I previously worked at a place called SEC Country in Atlanta, where we did college football coverage. We did it the right way and everything, and that company went under in 2018. So in 2018, I just cut out on my own. I said, screw it, I'm not going to work for anybody anymore. I'm going to buy a camera, buy a mic, and I'm just going to be a podcaster. So I did a Mississippi State football podcast, and then an opportunity came along to work for a company called My Bookie on the side. I was making $25 a show, and I would talk gambling picks. I was just, every day at 3 o'clock, I would just fire it up, and I would talk gambling picks. I'd tell people my picks, and I would have about 30 people show up to take those picks. And I was just trying to build a profile, build something. I don't know what I was trying to build. Okay, flash forward to March. It's Final Four weekend. Dave Portnoy tweets out, Dave, prolific gambler, loves to gamble. He tweets out, I want to put $250,000 on Texas Tech to beat Virginia Monday night.
Yeah.
Now, dumbest bet in the world because Virginia won that game. But anyway, he said, I want to do that. And a guy that I was doing a show for My Bookie, but a guy that was running social for My Bookie, like quote tweeted it and said, you're a fake gambler or something like that. They called Dave out. And, if you call Dave out, look out, because shit's about to get real. Dave goes at my bookie, and then lo and behold, I go live from the my bookie Twitter page at 3 o'clock that day. And instead of 25 people that I'm used to, there's 1,200 Dave Portnoy fans in the chat telling me I'm a squid, I'm terrible, I'm ugly, my mother does crazy things to farm animals. Like, they're telling me everything in the world. And I
Yeah.
just kind of roll with it. I just like, whoa, guys, whoa, I'm a Dave Portnoy fan. And I just rolled. I started insulting them back. I started, turning their jokes around on them. I started, throwing them the bird a little bit. And that night, Dave saw it. And Dave blogged on Barstool Sports. This was April 9th, 2019. He blogged, I should hire this guy that did my bookie stream today. The next day, he DMs me on Twitter, says, I want to hire you. I said, hire me. I gave him my number. He called me 15 minutes later, and 30 minutes later, I signed my first contract with Barstool Sports.
That's wild. So what is the world of, like, explain to people, because people see Barstool, right? And it kind of it evokes a certain connotation to a certain demographic and a certain people. What is it like inside the Barstool machine?
To me, George, it's just real. Like if you go on very polished sports shows, they're always going to talk about college football in the sense of, they better come out with their game face on, or this is a big game, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But the real talk is, I'm just a passionate fan who's just as dumb as anybody else. I'll call somebody overrated. I'll say they're this. I'll say they're that. I'll say whatever comes to my mind as a passionate fan. To me, it's fans with access to audience, and that's different from the normal media machine, which is polished, it's cleaned up, it's all that. But inside the Barstool universe, I mean, it's as fun as it looks from the outside. It's sometimes stressful, but the bottom line is this: Dave Portnoy has yelled at me, he has cussed me, he has done all these things, but he's the most fair boss I've ever had. He's the most he listens more than any boss I've ever had. He is the most giving boss I've ever had when it comes to taking care of his guys. So sometimes you have to take a few punches from Dave, but just know when the fight is really going on, he's going to have your back and being throwing punches with you.
Yeah. So, is there ever a time, because one of the things that I love about having my own platform, and then also not being financially dependent just upon my show at Sirius or anything like that, is that I don't feel pressure to say things to keep the sponsors happy or anything like that. And that's a level of freedom that a lot of people don't have. So is there ever a time, because Barstool does have, well, obviously things have changed over the last couple of years with him buying the company back, but there's been, like, are there ever any time where Dave's like, nah, don't say that, or anybody behind the scenes is like, let's stay away from that topic?
100% no, outside of the common sense elements. Like, when we were owned by Penn Gaming and we had our own sports book, there were certain things you couldn't say due to gambling regulations. You had to make sure you weren't stepping over some actual laws there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our opinion, when it comes to what we believe, when it comes to what we want to put out in the world, it's 100% freedom. Dave is never going to say, don't say this, it will offend some people. Don't say that, it will offend some people. Maybe he has to clean up some messes sometimes. Maybe he has to say, did you really have to say that, you idiot? Did you really have to say that? And maybe he has to clean up some messes, but there's never been a moment outside of, obviously, I've messed up with sponsors before, but there's never been a moment where Dave is like, you cannot act like this because it will hurt us. He does not do that.
So when there have been controversies, right?
Yeah.
Are those conversations where you can have a real conversation with Dave and you're like, Dave, you dead ass wrong about this, bro, and you guys push back? Or is it just like, how does that work?
You can absolutely talk to Dave like you talk to your buddies. I mean, Dave is going to make a final decision. Dave is the boss. Dave is all these things, but Dave will listen to you. Dave will let you vent. If Dave says, fuck you, you can say fuck you to Dave. Like, he is okay with that. Now, he might not like it in the moment and it might make it worse, but there is no treat me like this because I'm the boss. There's a real relationship there that, like, he treats you like he would be treated. Like he's as fair as I've ever seen, and there's kind of no holds barred when dealing with him. If you have to yell at him, you can yell at him. Now maybe it comes back on you, but it's not going to come back on you in the professional sense. Like you can never yell at your boss. It might come back at you like he yells at you louder, but I mean, no holds barred, really.
Yeah. So you and Dan Katz are pretty much the only people over there that have families because you got 4 kids.
Yeah.
So how is that part of the lifestyle when you're Brandon Walker dad,
Yeah.
but also you are, a Barstool personality?
That's the toughest part for me. First of all, it's a wonderful life, and it has provided a wonderful life for my family. But sometimes having 4 kids is having 4 kids, and sometimes the job has to come first, and sometimes the kids have to come first. But in football season, like September to February, I'm never here on a Saturday, ever.
Yeah.
I'm rarely here on a Sunday. So I do miss a lot, but that's what's called having a great wife and having everything. It's a funny story. I went to the Blackhawks game the other day, Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah.
And I got to take my whole family, all 6 of us. And I was walking through. I have 3 sons, 13, 11, and 8. And I'm walking through. I'm leading them through this big crowd. And this fan goes, "Yo, Brandon fucking Walker." And I'm like, whoa.
I'm with the kids.
Yeah. Not right now. It's just dad right now. So, but like that guy's also a fan, and you want to have that. But sometimes it's difficult explaining. Today dad had to spin around on a bat, get dizzy, and throw up for everybody to laugh at him. Sometimes it's hard to explain what dad did at work today.
Well, see, but the cool part is that in like LeBron James, for example, like our kids have gone to the same school out of here, so I've had a chance to see him up close and personal.
Right.
And him as a dad, him as a person, things like that. And then when people were talking about his son Bronny potentially going to the NBA this year, they're like, "Oh, it's nepotism. That's the only reason why he'll get drafted," and all of that. I was like, what is the difference between him and Joe Buck and any other Fortune 500 company person who has elevated their kid to a position or gotten them jobs that they probably wouldn't have gotten?
Well, there is no difference whatsoever. The only difference there is it's LeBron James, and when that name is said, 50% of the people are going to love it, 50% of the people are going to hate it, and it's ridiculous. He's one of the most admirable people that we have in sports. But no, that's not nepotism. Also, if it was nepotism for Bronny James, look at all the other juniors running around in sports. So I certainly there is no difference in nepotism in any walk of life. Guess what? LeBron James is 6'8". He's 275 pounds. He's been the best basketball player in the world for 20 years. Chances are his son's pretty damn good at basketball.
Yep. And that's the whole thing. Have you experienced any of that with your kids where people don't like Brandon Walker, and now all of a sudden your sons or your daughter are getting it at school?
Yeah. No, not really, because our audience is I don't want to say it's regimented, but we have a very clear audience, that 18 to 34 male demographic, and we have audience of all shapes and sizes, but 18 to 34 males is probably where we kill it the most.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of, like, my kids are in junior high. Not a lot of junior high kids really know who I am. Not a lot of junior high kids they might know what Barstool is, or maybe they know what Dave Portnoy is, but they don't really know what I am. I do anticipate as they get towards high school and college age, it will get more pronounced that they get recognized as my kid. But by that point, I think, by that point, I plan to be so big that I'm just going to own a company anyway. So who cares?
Yeah, it don't matter at that point. But you started out in the South, and you were over at the Mississippi State podcast called More Cowbells. You like you said, a writer at SEC Country. What was that grind like at that point in time when you wanted to be in this space and didn't have the platform that you do now?
It sucked. It sucked bad. I got into media in 2004. I was a sports writer. I was a one-man sports department at my hometown newspaper in West Point, Mississippi. And I made, again, about $7 an hour. And I grinded as a small town sports writer till about 2012. And then that was 8 years. And then I did some newspaper editing where I was the boss of a newspaper for about 4 years. But I was never happy because when you're a newspaper editor, or even when you're a small town sports writer, you're not really in the big time sports. You're not going to college games every weekend. You're not going to NBA games. You're not in the mix. And somebody like me who's just diehard sports, being in the mix was more important than the money. It was more important
Yeah.
than the lifestyle. It was just I wanted to be around the game. So about 2016 is when I finally got a breakthrough and I got that SEC country gig. And that's when they put me in charge of podcasts and they said, you find the people that will do these shows. And I did that. But then I realized, hey, I'm a podcaster. That's what
Yeah.
I am. You put a mic in front of my hand and I say things. And for whatever reason, I can say things college football related that get people pumping their fists or get people shaking their fist in anger. And so the grind sucked. Now, was it fun at times? Yeah. Did I enjoy it at times? Yeah. But my big break came when I was 40 years old. That's pretty late to have your big break.
Yeah. I mean, is it though? Really? I mean, in this day and age when you
It
have
felt
so
like
many,
it. Yeah. It damn sure felt like it.
I mean, when in the day and age when you have so many 20-some-year-old millionaires, and I was one
Yeah.
of them, like it's
No, I get it,
different.
George. You got money, man. You got money. Fuck, I get it.
Hey, wait, hold on. Not money like players now. This money
Yeah.
is different. This money is different. Hey,
Yeah.
if I played now, bro, I'd be rich.
Yeah.
But when you look at, like you said your big break happened at 40, right?
Yeah.
When you have so many young millionaires and people doing well at young ages, the Mark Zuckerbergs, it makes you feel like you're failing. But do you feel like a success right now, or is there some more that you're pointing to, like, I'll feel successful when this happens?
So I do feel like I've broken through and I do have a national platform. However, I mean, you know this. Whenever you were playing ball and you were playing at the highest level of D1 or you're playing in the National Football League, that's great. But you didn't feel like a success. You didn't like stop and say, "Boy, I made it." No, what you do is you say, "I got here. Now how do I get here?" And then
Yes,
how do I
yeah,
get here?
yeah.
How do I
You're
get
like,
here?
all right. I'm here. How do I get to the Pro Bowl? How do I get
Right.
to be an All
Right.
Pro? And some of it is luck, and some of it's skill, some of it's staying healthy, some of it's
Yeah.
just like you got your big break with Portnoy.
Yeah.
It was luck at the time, even though you had prepared yourself for that
Mhm.
moment. You don't know when that moment's going to show up.
It was 1,000% luck. It was. There are guys grinding right now that are as talented as me that'll never get their break. I
Yep,
understand that, but mine was 1,000% luck. But what you just said was right. When luck knocks on the door, be prepared to fucking take it. Be
yep,
prepared to put in the work. And what I do isn't really work, but I work hard at it. If that makes sense.
correct.
Like
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying.
football's not technically work, but you have to work hard at it to get great at it, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, so me and my wife, we get in this argument sometimes, especially during college football season, because I'm a college
Yeah.
football nut. Like, it is
Yeah.
number one at the top of the list. Nothing else.
Yeah.
If you want to ask me to do something, ask me to do it on Sunday. Don't ask me to do it on Saturday.
Yeah.
And she will say, because I'm watching college football from the time,
Right.
like,
From rooter to tutor.
yes, from the beginning to the end,
Yeah.
nothing is
The
missed.
alpha and the omega.
Yes. And she will say, George, oh my God, how can you watch this many games? Like, let's go do. I'm like, baby, it's
Yeah.
work. She's like, this
Yeah.
ain't no damn work. I'm like,
No.
baby, it's work.
Yeah.
I gotta know everything to talk about it.
Guess what, George? She's right. It ain't work, but it is work, but it ain't work. So
Yes,
that's
correct.
That's the balance that we do, right? We gotta put in the work. We gotta put everything up here. We gotta get these eyeballs on as many players as possible. But at the same time, we're not digging ditches, right?
Hell no.
My dad drove a truck for 40 years. I ain't doing that, so I'm blessed in that regard. But at the same time, if the opportunity comes, you better bust your ass at that particular opportunity to make sure you keep having that opportunity.
Yeah. You said something this week and it resonated with me. I was like, this is what I've been saying. I'm gonna say a name to you, and then you
Yeah.
tell me that way the people can hear it from your own mouth what your stance on this is. I'm gonna say a name. Caitlin Clark.
Let me tell you something. Caitlin Clark has reached a point in this society, in our sports world, that very, very few reach. LeBron has reached it in his career, of course. Tom Brady reached it. And I'm not specifically talking about athletic accomplishments. What I'm talking about is she's reached a point with her greatness in college basketball that the mere mention of her name will have 100% of people feeling some type of way, whether
Yep.
they get mad, whether they jump up and start singing, "Oh my God, Caitlin Clark." But the fact that last week I watched a very reputable sportscaster, a guy who's been there, Jay Williams. Jay Williams said, Caitlin Clark has got the points record. She's got all these assists, but I can't call her great because she hasn't won a championship. That is
What?
flat out wrong. That is
How are
wrong.
you not great when you are the Division 1 leader in points?
That
The
is
Division 1 leader in points, and you did it in like 12 or 13 less games than Kelsey Plum did it.
We have been poisoned in this society, in this country, in sports to think you're only great if you win championships. Let's get one thing straight. Championships are incredible. They are the be all end all, but they are also a team accomplishment. If you get Iowa to the national championship game, if you put them on your back and get them there, if you lead, not only is she the all time leading scorer in women's basketball, you know where she is in assists? She's sixth all time. That is individual greatness. The idea that you have to win a team championship to be validated as great is wrong and is stupid. And Caitlin Clark has reached a point. She is so great. Her greatness is so undeniable that it makes people lose their minds.
Oh, dude, I posted a video, a YouTube short about Cheryl Swoop's comments.
Right.
About Caitlin Clark, where she got on Gilbert's podcast and she just was just out there just lying.
Yeah.
But then people were saying, "Oh, she's a racist, she's a liar, she's this," and I was thinking, a question I've wrestled with my whole entire life is it a lie if you believe it's true? Because she just didn't know what the hell she was talking about.
I don't think she's a racist. I don't think she is.
No.
I think she is a competitor.
Yep.
And I think that competitor in her refused to let Caitlin Clark in the door. They refused to look at the entire scope of Caitlin Clark's greatness. Because, listen, this new World of Athletes podcast is a phenomenal viewpoint into the excellence of some very competitive people. These, and you see it every week, these athletes podcasts. I saw Carmelo Anthony going at George Karl and George Karl going at Carmelo Anthony. Like, these guys that have retired that are now saying things about other players, you realize how single-minded they can be sometimes.
Yes.
Where my greatness supersedes whoever I'm watching now. And that's not racist, that's competitiveness.
Yeah, and people were like, "Oh, she's just lying," and I was like, I don't think she clearly doesn't know, because she said she's been in college for 5 years, and then she's done it in more games. I was like, that don't sound like a racist. That sounds like somebody who's ignorant to the actual facts of the situation. And she's become so polarizing. And one of the things that I've looked at with her is, it's confusing to me because she's clearly powerful and strong and great at what she does. She gave them the "you can't see me." And my only thing is that when people come at her, why do they treat her like a damsel in distress when she gives it just as good as she gets it?
So, like I said, and you're going back to almost to the Angel Reese thing last year. When Angel Reese did the ring thing, and people were like, "Oh my God, that's so not classy. Oh my God." They're playing ball. They're on the court playing. They're playing ball. You understand what it's like to play ball? They're out there trying to win the same thing, and they're competing, and those juices are flowing. There was no. She's not a bad person because she went like this. She won the game, and would I have done it? Probably not. But who cares? They're playing ball.
When you win, you get to do what you want to do.
So Caitlin Clark, like I said, the mere mention of her name makes people lose their minds on both sides because the
Yep.
Caitlin Clark defenders are way too eager to throw race in the mix. They're way too eager. Remember about 5 weeks ago now when Ohio State beat them and Ohio State's fans rushed the court and Caitlin Clark was running off the court and a fan and they collided and Caitlin Clark just did the, oh my God, I've been shot, and she fell out.
Yeah.
She listen, she's a great player, phenomenal, but she flopped. That
Thank
was a
you.
flop.
That's
But
what.
if you say she flopped, then you're a bad person.
Yes.
You hate this. Caitlin Clark has reached a level, and there's probably 5 athletes in the world right now where either side you say her name, they go batshit crazy.
All right. So we have reached a point that we've never reached in sports prior. Is that women's college basketball is bigger than men's right now. Like if you at least in me and my world, that if you put on LSU, if you put on Iowa, you put on Miami, USC with Juju Watkins, I'm gonna watch the game as opposed to some of these guys in the men's game that I don't know.
So I'm gonna disagree, but tweak what you just said a little bit. I don't think the women's game is bigger than the men's game. I do think for the first time ever, the women's game has bigger stars. And star power turns TV channels. Like Caitlin Clark turns TV channels. Zach Edey don't really turn TV channels. You know,
no.
These great, and UConn's a great team, men's basketball team. They don't really have. Oh my God, he's playing. Let me switch
Zion,
over there.
Yeah, like a Zion Williamson or any of those big
Steph
names.
Curry, Davidson. You know, it goes back all the way. But the biggest star in college basketball has always been a man. And for the first time, not only is the number 1 star not a man, the number 2 star is probably not a man either. So it is weird. However, March is coming up. And when March Madness gets here, it'll be the same greatness that it always is. You'll see the same 25 million people watch that always watch. I just think there is a lack of star power right now in men's college basketball.
Yeah. Now let's transition over to college football because this is the thing that me and you love the absolute most. And there's a lot of people talking about college football is broken. It's over because Nick Saban retired. Chip Kelly went to go be an OC. I'm like, the product on the field is great. And if we're getting people out of the game that don't want to be in the game, sayonara.
Yeah, I think what's just the struggle for college football fans right now is we've gone through about 25 years worth of changes in about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Like we've taken this huge, because players have needed to be compensated for NIL for what, decades now? It should have happened a long time ago. The transfer portal should have been more free a long time ago. You're really going to punish a guy because he's seeking a better opportunity? These things should have worked themselves out naturally over the years, but instead we get to 2020 and they're like, you know what? Fuck it. Transfer portal's wide open, NIL's wide open, and deal with it. And that wasn't the way to do it. That just wasn't the way to do it. And now you've got these things, and I do think it's a coincidence that Saban is leaving now, and then you got Kalen DeBoer leaving for Alabama. Harbaugh is leaving the game. He's got his own things. But the fact of the matter is, we just had our last 14 playoff, and 75% of the coaches in that playoff are no longer with the teams they led there. It's a phenomenal time in college football. However, you can look at college football as broken. You can look at it as like the wheels are falling off. However you want to look at it, you need to look at this. The ratings are higher than they've ever been.
Yep.
Revenues are higher than they've ever been. These teams are making more money than they know what to do with. Everything about college football's profile is higher than it's ever been. So if individual fans get their feelings hurt because this player transfers or that player's getting money, get over it, sweetheart, because this ship is rolling on without you.
Yeah, the only thing I don't love about the changes in college football is that the thing that makes college football so special is the fan bases and the crazy passion surrounding it. And sometimes when things get too corporate, that like they lose the mom and pop feel and the grassroots feel to it. And I think that the powers that be in college football have to keep that part of it at the forefront. And like, even though that obviously we all want to make more money, be more popular, I think that at the end of the day that you have to find a way to stay connected to the ground and not to your ivory tower.
Well, yeah, no, what you're talking about is the soul of college football, right? The soul of college football is that game between teams are like 150 miles apart on Saturday that just fucking hate each other. It's Washington State and Oregon. It's all these. Now we've reached this point where the mechanism of college football has built this cash cow in the Big Ten, this cash cow in the SEC,
Yep.
and frankly, we've lost that regionality. College football felt different from the West Coast to the Southeast to the East Coast to the Midwest, but it was all under one umbrella. Now it is being pushed together in one money-making thing. Now, will we get used to it? Probably. But am I a little sad? I want to ask you this. Like, you played your career, right?
Yep.
When you were playing your career, would you have rather woke up on Saturday morning knowing that you were gonna go out and play? You're gonna go out and travel a couple hours and play Washington State, this team that you have to play every year, or are you getting excited to go play in West Lafayette, Indiana, against Purdue? Like it just
Yep.
is gonna feel weird, isn't it?
Hell yeah. The Pac-12 though dying, that one hurt my heart, even though I saw it coming. Like I'm yelling at the top of at the mountain, like, yo, it's broken, it's gone. As soon as and it started with Larry Michael Scott, and I call him the old commissioner because he ran the Pac-12 like it was Dunder Mifflin paper, and he just made bad decision after bad decision. And I was like, as soon as the SEC left CBS and signed a deal with ESPN, I was like, oh, it's over. If the Pac-12 does not get CBS, it's over. That is the only chance that you possibly have. And they didn't get it. I was like, oh, it's toast. And that was before USC and UCLA walked out of the door. But after they walked out the door, me knowing the people at Oregon, there was no way Oregon was staying. That meant Washington was leaving and everything else. And it hurt me because I love the Pac-10, 12 because I played in it. And those regional matchups matter. But at least I guess you still got Washington and USC and UCLA, which probably are the three that matter the most to me.
Yeah, mattered the most is fine, but I there's still something about a group of teams on one coast and a group of teams down here and a group of teams up there. These conferences have their own personalities and their own heartbeats and their own everything. Like, I didn't grow up in like Virginia, but I imagine waking up in Virginia on a Saturday morning in 1995. You get excited to see Virginia Tech and this, and now again, you're going to have to wake up. If I'm a UCLA fan, I got to wake up and watch us play Maryland. Fuck that.
Yeah, you're like, wait, what? We're playing Maryland.
Yeah. So see, and this is old man yells at clouds, and I understand that. But at the same time, what made college football special was the passions from coast to coast, and it has dwindled a little bit in the name of the money that they're going to be making.
And you just brought up a point about the regionality of it. And that's the thing that I love the actual most is that, so of course there's going to be no problem with Oregon, Ohio State, Washington, Michigan, USC, Michigan State, like UCLA, Penn State, like those things are still going to feel good. And some of these teams have played. But like you were saying, some of those off teams, because there's history between Oregon and Stanford, where Stanford has won, and Stanford and USC, where they've won games that have been critical to Oregon not making the playoff or USC not making the playoff. And those are the things that I think that people haven't accounted for when they're talking about these matchups, because how many games is it going to take Indiana and USC to play for it to actually matter?
Yeah, I guess, and at the end of the day, college football is about your money brands. It's about, there's probably 3 or 4 teams in every single conference that really drive the money, and this is going to get them closer together and get more matchups out of them. And we're contracting. It just does suck for the teams out there whose fans never have a chance to win a national title, never have a chance to play meaningful football. But I'm along for the ride. I want to see where it goes. Because every change that everybody said is going to ruin college football, it just hasn't.
Nope.
Back in the day when they said, let's do a BCS. Oh, no. Computers? No, we're not going to do that. 14 playoff? No, that's going to ruin college football. Both of those things made it better. NIL is making players' lives better. which in turn helps the product. Transfer portals is making players' lives better. So every change that people have been scared of have worked out fine. So I'm going to keep an open mind about this as well.
So where are you on the 12-team playoff? Because I'm a big fan. Well, I thought it should be 8 or
Yeah.
16 because I don't like buys because it's
Yeah.
football. People get hurt. All of that stuff,
Yeah.
playing extra games. But I do think that at this point in time with the transfer portal and NIL,
Yeah.
and that we're going to have more parity because the rosters aren't going to be quite as deep, that this is the perfect time for playoff expansion.
You know, like I just said, I don't think college football has ever made a mistake expanding its playoff system. When they, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they let teams play 11 games. They got to the end, they let them play bowls, and then they said, you know what? That team right there is a national champion. See Nebraska over there?
Yeah.
That's a national champion. They did that for 100 years, George. It was the dumbest thing in the world.
Dumbest.
So when they moved to the BCS, that was a good move. Expanding to 4 was a good move. But 4 is just not enough. That's not a real playoff. That's an invitational at that point.
Yep.
8 would be good. I think 12 is fine. I personally would like 16, but more games between the best teams is never, ever, ever a bad idea.
Never. And when we look at, I guess the other part of college football, because there's obviously there's the money, there's the transfer portal, there is the the coaches. I look at coaches' salaries as a little bit of a problem. Now, mind you, I'm a free market guy, capitalist, like that. Everybody should be, but I do think that when you have that, the way the contracts are structured, where coaches, where you have Brian Kelly, if he leaves LSU, he has to pay them $2 million versus if he just decides, I'm gonna go take the USC job. Or he does a poor job and they fire him, they owe him like $90 million.
Yeah. It's weird. Coaches' salaries are very, very weird is the right word, because the players are the true value, right? However, Nick Saban probably made I'm gonna just guess. This might not be right. I'm gonna say, let's say Nick Saban made $125 million for the University of Alabama since 2007, right?
That's probably about right. Yeah.
If you flip that and compare that to what was Nick Saban worth to Alabama from 2007 to 2024, because it's a hell of a lot bigger than 125 million. You get the right guy, you get the right leader. Coaches' salaries are almost a bargain at that point. However, there has always been the juxtaposition of a coach can get an exorbitant salary, and when he wants to leave, his ass leaves. And when a player wants to leave, they got to go through all these hoops and the fans badmouth them and everything. Now that the transfer portal has opened up, I feel like players are free and coaches are free, and as long as those match up, I'm okay.
All right, so there is one thing, because you grew up watching SEC football. There is one thing that bugs the hell out of us West Coast folks, and me particularly, is the SEC playing 8 conference games. I can't make sense of it, Brad. This has got to be the dumbest freaking thing in the world. You all right?
No, I threw my stool because I was mad at the question.
Oh. Hey, you can't tell me that this is not the dumbest shit in the world, man. That's George, how mad I am, because it is a grift. It's a grift.
George, let me ask you a question. If I said, hey, you know what? We're going to go out and we're going to get in shape this week. And you're going to run 9 hills. You're going to run 9 little hills, and every time you're going to run up a hill, run downhill, run up a hill, downhill, 9 times. Me, I'm going to run up 8 mountains. I'm going to
8 mountains. Georgia and Alabama haven't played in the regular season in like 10 years.
I'm running, and finally I get across. And you know what happens when I get to the bottom of that first mountain? Here comes Georgia. I gotta climb another mountain.
When is the last time that Alabama had to climb Georgia during the regular season?
8 SC, I don't know. 8
exactly
SEC games on an annual basis. If you take a 10-year stretch, a 20-year stretch, a 30-year stretch, 8 SEC games are more punishing than 9 games in any other league. Now, recently, I would say the Big Ten East has gotten close to the power of the SEC. It has. So I would say that one. But at no point in the last 20 years, ever since USC fell off, has a 9-game conference schedule been equal to an 8-game SEC schedule. And I'll fight
God. Are you gonna keep perpetuating this lie and this myth? Okay, so look, there is let me explain the math to you on this.
I know how math works, George.
Okay. Yes, I know your wife's a professor. She's probably explained this to you, but let me explain
9
this
is
to you.
more than 8. I got it.
No, it's not even that part of the math. Okay, so when you play 8 conference games, that means that you are going to average 4 losses per team over the course of the versus 4.5. So when the SEC teams played that November cupcake, while Arizona's playing Oregon or Michigan's playing Michigan State or Ohio State's playing Penn State at the end of the season, those SEC teams that play the cupcakes, they get artificially moved up when they're playing Northwestern State, unless they're Auburn, who loses to New Mexico State. Like, you get artificially moved up the rankings, and now instead of just having the 2 elite teams at the top, now all of a sudden, Kentucky looks better because they got an extra win. Now they're a 10-win team. It's a grift, Brandon, and you must admit it.
No, I'm not going to admit it. I'm going to take my team for an example, okay? 2010 is the best season I can remember for this example. 2010, Mississippi State had been like 5-7 the year before. They had a good team. It was Dan Mullen's second year. Mississippi State went 8-4, and that's a mediocre record, right? That is a mediocre record. That's
good
pretty
for Mississippi State.
George, come on now. Anyway,
hold on. Were you a Mississippi State fan when Mississippi State came up to Austin and I had 2 touchdowns?
I was going to ask you what because we'll get to that in a minute. We're going to get to that in Stadium in a minute. But anyway, 2010, Mississippi State, who plays in the SEC West, they lost 4 games. All 4 games were to SEC West opponents. All 4 were to top 10 teams. All 4 were single-digit losses. So they played 4 teams in their division, all top 10. There is nowhere in the country that you get a stretch like that ever outside the SEC.
That's not going on anymore, though, Brandon. That's the thing. Is that
you're telling me adding Texas and Oklahoma is going to make it easier? That's going to make it tougher.
That's what. Okay, so if you're going to go to a league with 16 teams, why would you not go to 9 conference games? That way now you can get more games on the schedule, and instead of playing 3 non-competitive games and then 1 Power 5 game against, it doesn't even have to be against a good team. Why not play 9 conference games and then y'all can keep your little 3 cupcake games?
The 8-game SEC schedule is every bit as demanding as any 9-game schedule in the country. And if you want to know the honest truth,
so you think hold on. So you think in 2024 an 8-game schedule is going to be tougher than what Oregon has to face in the Big Ten next year with Ohio State and Michigan on the schedule, plus UCLA and whatever other teams are on there too.
UCLA is going to be garbage juice next year. You know that.
That's true.
Okay, but anyway, Oregon's schedule will be tough next year. And would I personally move it to 9 games? Yeah, but do I see the logic of why they're sticking with 8? Do I see?
Because it's going to get you more teams in the playoff.
I mean, I don't think the SEC's hurting for getting teams in the playoff. So whatever they're doing, they're getting as many teams as they can get in bowls to get that money. They're getting as many teams in the playoff. Yeah, maybe it's a competitive advantage, but Greg Sankey is the commissioner. His job is to find that competitive advantage for the SEC. And to me, it has worked. Like 8 games in the SEC. You go 8-0 in the SEC, you're the best team in the country. That's all I'm going to say. Most years.
Yes.
Most years.
I will agree with that, because I will tell you, there was a time where I was in probably like 15, 16, around there, where I'm looking at Nick Saban and I'm looking at Bama, and I'm like, bro, this is part of the grift. They're a little bit overrated, and then this fool will not lose. And I had to just admit, like, Alabama's just different than everybody else. And now
Up
Georgia's
up until this year, when Michigan beat Alabama, I think in the history of the playoff, the SEC had 3 losses, or maybe that was
and
their
they were
third
like
loss
all
to a
against
non.
each other basically, and then Clemson. Like
Yeah, it was Ohio
Clemson
State.
beat
Ohio
Bama.
State beat Alabama in 14.
Yep.
Clemson beat Bama twice, and then Michigan beat Alabama this year.
Yeah.
And otherwise, the SEC wins every other playoff game, of which there's
I
been.
think that you're going to see a change in that, Brandon, because
And that's fine. Listen, because I think you're pigeonholing me a little bit, George. I'm a national college football fan. Here's people look at the South, and they see SEC fans, and they think we're all in our trailers chanting SEC, SEC whenever Alabama or Georgia win the national title. That's not true. There's nobody in the world that wants to see Alabama get beat on the big stage more than me. I hate Alabama. I'm so
okay.
damn tired of Alabama. I want them to lose. The problem is when the playoff happens, then the rest of these teams play Alabama and Georgia, and we're like, see, you see what we have to deal with all year? That's what we say as SEC fans.
All right, so this
now,
last year in college football,
I got to go back to something because I'm gonna let you talk your shit. What years were you at Oregon?
I got there in '99, and I left my junior year after the 02-03 season. I got drafted 03.
Okay, all right. So you were not. So 02 we went out there, right? I believe we went out and y'all beat the ever living shit out of us.
Yes.
And then 03 y'all came back to us, and y'all beat the ever living shit out of us.
Yes.
You weren't there, but I just remember it was Oregon was winning that game in Starkville. I went to it 28-0 in the second quarter. We cut it to 28-21, and then Oregon like yawned, and they were like, "Oh, all right, we'll just fucking end it." Like, and they just beat the shit out of us. But that was a bad stretch for us. That was a good stretch for you guys.
Yeah. So what? Because I'm very West Coast, but I talk to a lot of national people and talk nationally about college football. But I'm always interested to see how people on the other side of the country feel about Oregon, feel about USC, Washington at this point in time right now in 2024.
So Oregon to me is a classic case of almost. They seem like they're almost good enough to win a national title every year. Every year they put themselves in position to either be in the playoff mix or be right there with a loss, and then something happens. Whenever it's time to take that step, they don't do it. Whether it's they lose to Arizona State or whether because listen, we all saw this past season, right? We saw Oregon lose by 3 at Washington and then beat the living shit out of everybody else on the schedule. So naturally we said, damn, if they get another shot at Washington, it's lights out.
Yep.
And then it wasn't. Like every time Oregon
lose
puts
by 3
itself
again.
Position,
yep.
They have Oregon always there's certain schools that just know how to accumulate talent every single year. And Oregon is one of them. But at the same time, when it's time to cash out, they always
this is different. This is different now, Brandon. This is different.
No, how's it different now? It's been the same for 2 decades.
No. So first of all, Oregon's went to the national championship against Ohio State, and they lost 14. That game where Ezekiel Elliott was just, he ran through Bama first. And then,
Ohio State was not going to get beat that year. I give that to you.
And then they played in the national championship again against Cam Newton, and Dwyer was down, and they lost by 3 points. Which
I have a question.
Yeah.
My question is, Dwyer wasn't down.
Dwyer was absolutely down. His ankle was laid on the ground.
I ain't got nothing to do with an ankle. All I saw was him getting up and running. That's all. Listen, I hate Auburn too. Cam Newton should have been at Mississippi State. Like, we didn't pay him, and Auburn paid him, so I didn't want Auburn to win that game, but they did.
So yes, you are right. But the difference is that Oregon in the Auburn game and in the Ohio State game, they didn't look like they look now. Them boys, when they get off the bus, they look like an SEC team. They look like Alabama, Georgia when they get off the bus. And I think that
I
that's
gotta,
the
I
difference.
gotta, I gotta. I mean, Oregon's had dudes for 2 decades. Haloti
Not,
Nada. I mean, those guys,
yeah,
been getting off the bus for years.
no, there's that instead of Haloti Nada and Igor Olshansky
Yeah,
getting off the bus, and then it kind of from
yeah,
there. Now it's like, oh, now it's 1 through 4, and yes, we had to go get Jordan Birch from the SEC,
yeah.
and
Right, right. Evan Stewart, where'd he come
yep,
from?
hey,
Okay.
bro, I understand.
Yeah,
Go get all of them. Go get
yeah.
all of them because the deal has to get closed. And I don't think that people really understand how important that this is to Phil Knight and how important it is to people at Oregon because we want to shut everybody up. And it's just one of them, like, it's just enough noise. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, you guys are great, but, oh, the zero, the oh. There's nothing more annoying than that, Brandon. I don't think that there's any other fan base in college football that has to deal with this.
That's fine. First of all, there's a lot of teams that have to deal with this. Secondly, you're never over that hill until you're off that hill, and Oregon can't get off that hill. And Oregon can put itself on the hill. Oregon knows how to accumulate talent. They know how to build rosters, and this roster coming up is going to be damn good. But at the end of the day, it's about what that what that scoreboard says at zeros, and they have never been on the right side. Now, in sports, I believe just because a team hasn't broken through, that doesn't mean they can't break through. You don't break through until you break through. So I believe they can do it, but you still got to do it. I'm not going to give you credit for doing it until you do it.
I agree. I got 2 words for you though. Dan Lanning.
Yeah, future Alabama coach Dan Lanning, future
No,
Georgia
absolutely
coach
not.
Dan
You
Lanning.
better wash your mouth out with soap for saying that. Future
So
Alabama.
it has been, and I like that Dan Lanning is staying at Oregon because I think the last 5 or 6 years has been so weird out there in the fact that like 2 straight coaches went back east to take jobs that were objectively, in my opinion, worse than the Oregon job. So
Yeah.
that didn't make sense. So
Well,
seeing a Lanning stay out there to me, and this opportunity of now going to the Big Ten and now being one of the power brokers there, is Oregon's a very, very interesting team. I don't know if Dylan Gabriel's a national title winning quarterback though.
yeah. Well, he's shorter than I thought he was, but he
Yeah.
can clearly play though. I just
Shorter than you thought he was. He could be standing on that shelf behind you. You wouldn't know it.
no, I when I saw him in person, I was like, oh, he's a little shorter than I thought he was.
What'd you do? What'd you put him in your pocket? Oh, you don't know our quarterback, right? Hold on, I'm gonna get our quarterback out.
He's fun size, but he's a baller though. But that's a whole nother point. Is that this whole short quarterback thing? Like it wasn't a thing. It didn't used to be a thing, and now with Bryce and with Dylan Gabriel, you're having Drew. I mean, well, Drew Brees a giant compared to some of these dudes. Like
so, ultimately, once the college football game spread out, I believe, and really went to sideline, and now you got 5 athletes all over the field, and everything is not compact in that area, and everything isn't. Can your quarterback do this? Can your quarterback do that? It's just these offensive coordinators have figured out how to get the ball out here and how to get the ball out here, and you got to defend the sideline to sideline. I feel like that has made the quarterback size less of an issue. Also, I feel like college football guys have finally realized if a guy can play, he can play.
Yep.
We don't play games based on measurements. 6'3", 240 is great to look at, I'm sure. But guess what? If 5'11", 195 is smarter, quicker, and has more athletic ability, he's a better quarterback, and especially in the college game. So I think college coaches have accepted that sometimes quarterbacks come in different packages.
Absolutely. All right, B. Here's where we end, and then we play a game called Wrighster or Wrong.
Okay. All right. Okay. Can you pause right there?
Yeah. Yep.
Do you have a guy handling this? Because my battery thing is on. I got to just plug up.
Yeah. And you guys, he's Brandon Walker. You can find him over at the Mostly Sports Show and Unnecessary Roughness podcast as well. See, remember, professional.
Yeah, that was very good. I just want to point out real quick. You texted me earlier and said, "Hey, I'll have you on for about 15 or 20 minutes." We're at about an hour and 15.
Hey, when we started, what did you say? You said 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 2 hours all day. It don't matter to me.
You brought my own bullshit back against me. All right, you win this round. You win.
All right. You guys, he's Brandon Walker. Make sure you go check him out. Brandon, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, George, pleasure. And this is a home and home, right?
Yeah, man. I'm absolutely down to come on, man. Just hopefully you guys are prepared over there for somebody like me who's ready to take that number one spot.
That's fine. Like I said earlier, you're gonna have to come and take it.